chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. The time is 9 a.m. Welcome to everybody in the audience and those who are listening at home. So I will turn the agenda of this meeting over to our city administrator, Britt Seabenes. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is approve a purchase of a 3-ton Falcon asphalt recycler and Hotbox trailer for the Public Works Department.
Mr. Alto, morning.
It's on. There you go. This is out of our 2022 budget. It's 2021 pricing, state bid list. Another thing that was in our budget and it was approved already. Need permission to order it.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
I'll move to approve the purchase.
Councillor Paulson moves to approve the purchase. Is there support? Support by Councillor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed. Sir?
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approve the purchase of a 2023 Horton Ford ambulance.
And we have in the audience today Chief Alan Lewis from the Fire Department and Atlas, I can't see who that is. Is that Kevin Poffs? Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for the consideration of this much-needed item. I brought Kevin with me today, Battalion Chief Poffs, to explain any questions that you might have on the specifics of the ambulance itself. As you know, we have purchased for the past, I think 6 years now, an ambulance every single year. We do this because we place about 300,000 miles per year in total upon our 5 different ambulances and then our reserve unit. When we miss a year like we are now due to supply chain issues, we're falling behind by about 60,000 miles. So what that does is it creates a situation where we have increased maintenance costs. And those deferred costs of not getting a new ambulance begin to pile up. And we see those down the road when things like transmissions go out. And I would point out that in the past we were only able to get about 200,000 miles out of these ambulances. Since switching over to a higher grade and a higher quality of ambulance, heavier duty chassis, and Kevin can explain more of that in detail, we've been able to get 300,000 miles out of an ambulance. For the amount of work that we do with these ambulances, the amount of roads that we run, that is very, very good. You won't find many organizations that run the op tempo that we do that get anywhere close to this and maintain a quality of care and of service. So I guess that's all I have at this time, unless people have questions for myself or Battalion Chief Poffs.
Okay, any councillor have questions or comments or a motion on the floor? Councillor Baraboo? You're good? Okay. Anybody, anything from staff? Okay, looking for council action. Councillor Paulson.
And this is, we talked about and discussed, this is in the budget because it's going to be delivered in 2023, and we budgeted for this. Based on that, I'll move to approve the purchase of the ambulance for $274,409.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Paulson. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Okay, support by Councillor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councillor Freely.
Sherry, could you further clarify what we're at with the budget with regard to this?
Yes, councilors. This $275,000, if the council chooses to purchase, it's about 18 months out for this vehicle, so that's putting us mid-2023, where I'm looking for other options, because it's going to be in his budget, in the ambulance budget. So either we increase revenue or we decrease expenses, because this is going to be a chunk of the expenses and the revenue. And we looked at lease options. I don't know where that is. That might be a little easier to swallow in payments-wise, but either way, it is a piece of equipment.
And I'm assuming, Chief, you've analyzed how it will impact your overall budget for other needs come 2023?
Well, yeah, and again, an ambulance has been in the budget for every single year, so we're literally not purchasing an ambulance this year at the capital that was scheduled in there is not in there anymore. What that does is that puts us a year behind. If the council was able to and be proactive, I would actually suggest they order 2 right now and defer the cost of payment, because we're actually missing a year, and we'll have to play catch-up. In 2023, if we go out again, imagine what the supply chain will look like then. If you're optimistic, you think it'll return to normal. If you're a realist, you probably realize that we're going to be out yet another number of months. So if we were able to do a capital bond or something like that, that would probably be the best approach, and literally put in an order for 2 now, looking at that ambulance projection out that far for delivery. I mean, we're talking August of 2023? 18 months. Okay.
But our current fleet is functionally operational through that point in time.
Currently, is
Okay.
the key word.
All right, thank you.
Just one question for you, Chief, before we vote. And then we'll go to Councilor Bearable. One question, is the pricing guaranteed once you order it here? Kevin?
In speaking with the company that we order from and our sales representative, the price is guaranteed when we commit to buy. So even though it's 18 months down the road,
Right.
once we committed. So, but we do have some timeline there on the commitment.
Sure, I understand. So there's a motion on the floor to approve tentatively, and if it does pass, it needs a 5-2 vote to pass because it's an expenditure of money, then that would be the commitment.
Yeah, I guess stated another way, if we committed right now, the price in 2023 would be what's on here.
Thank you very much, Battalion Chief Pops. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any for the one ambulance and the amount that's on the motion by Councilor Paulson, supported by Councilor Freely? Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I'm sorry, I guess I didn't see Councilor Beyondich's light on, so Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I know this may be veering off a little bit, but at the public safety meeting, or about the public safety building, Councilor Paulson had brought up talking with the county to help finance some of this. And I'm wondering where we are on that, because I understand the range, the full scope of where we service with very little reimbursement from anybody. So when we're doing these big capital purchases, we need to be having a discussion on other areas being able to help with this as we service them. So that was my only point. Have we gone any further on looking into that? Meeting with the county?
We're in the process, and I know I've talked to Keith Nelson, our 6th District Commissioner, informally, and told him at the Aaron Morris Event Center, when we were doing the evacuation, he showed up, that this is a prime example on what our emergency needs are, and the county needs to step up to the plate. And he says, yeah, whatever we can do. So I said, we need to set up a meeting and talk about this. And he says, yeah, let's set up a meeting. So that's where we're at right now. And we'll defer to our staff, and we should do that for any future purchases of ambulance as we move forward, to see if there's any other partnership that we can glean from for the future of the service that's provided outside our curtilage.
Thank you. Yes, I feel for the mileage that we do and the areas that we serve, that we should be reimbursed, or when we're making these capital purchases, such as these vehicles that benefit everybody, that we should be getting some help with that. So thank you.
Yeah, $16 an ambulance run at 23 cents a mile reimbursed from the county isn't enough, so.
22.
22,
Don't give us an extra penny.
Oh, geez, I didn't want to inflate. Okay, so thanks.
I will just mention that Commissioner Nelson did stop by in the midst of the evacuation process and promise us that he would support us. And I said, Commissioner, I'm going to be coming to you with a request, and our city's going to be coming to you with a request. And he said, whatever you need. So I have 2 witnesses. I think he's our newest supporter in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So it has been moved and supported the purchase of 1 ambulance at the amount that's previously stated by Counselor Paulson and supported by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is approve the airport rescue grant agreement for the Evos, Virginia Airport.
Counselor Johnson? Thank you. Counselor Johnson moves to approve the agreement. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item on the agenda is adopt a resolution to hire Colton Anderson as a dual-role firefighter EMT. Colton Anderson is an existing single-role employee, moving from single-role to a dual-role firefighter EMT under a current MOU we have with IAFF.
Very good, thank you. So the next step hopefully is the paramedic program too, so, okay, thank you. All right, looking for a motion to approve the resolution to hire Colton Anderson as a dual-role firefighter EMT.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is review the City of Virginia open commissions.
Yep, Pam, would you give us a little rundown, please?
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilor Johnson had requested that I put a listing in the agenda packet. So human rights, all the seats are currently open, and there are 5 of those. Parks and Rec, we have one application that we received that is in your packet. It normally requires an interview for someone that hasn't previously been on the board, so.
I have one other application too, Pam, that came in
Oh,
yesterday.
is there one that came in? Okay. Is it a new?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 new applications then. So we would probably have to set up a meeting to conduct some interviews for that position. We did receive the Evelyn Airport application from Daryl Napper. He's reapplying. We did receive the application from Bruce Johnson on the public utilities. He is reapplying. And we have the 2 incumbents on the Cable Commission. I have not gotten their apps back yet, but nobody seems to ever want to be on that one. So these gentlemen have been on there numerous years.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I asked for this is because I got to thinking about generational change and had asked if we have actual job descriptions for these, and we have some generic guidelines and what the commissions do, but we don't have any job descriptions. And I thought that it might behoove us as a city to sit down and create some job descriptions so that when someone wants to apply, instead of seeing what the commission does, they know what their responsibilities would do. As the generations are changing, people younger than most of us want to know exactly what they're going to be doing and what it is. And this really triggered for me when one of our previous commissioners was at work, stopped in to chat and said, well, I want to do more than just plan picnics. And that really triggered with me that we need to make sure these folks have some guidance in what they're doing. So I would like to volunteer as appropriate to work on some job descriptions for all of our commissions, library, work with those commissions. Pam had mentioned the human rights, I think, has a bylaws that would probably have some of those in. But I think that would be something as we move forward. Then we could post those on the city website, and folks could look at the Cable Commission and see what they do, because my guess is people think they have to have cable to be on the Cable Commission, and I'm guessing almost most of the people under the age of 30 don't even know what cable is. That would be my volunteer to work on that moving forward, if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Any other comments? Okay, with all due respect, I know we volunteer for things, and it's good that we ask, but I think this is a staff issue to do some research on those. Maybe Counselor Johnson or somebody from personnel, because job descriptions are related to personnel, could be involved in that as well. Counselor Johnson wants to be part of that, that's fine. But I think the driving force should be about doing some research to determine whether or not job descriptions or guidelines are more appropriate in that regard. For commissioners. It seems as though the commissioners who currently serve, and I know Councilor Johnson talked about the generational aspect of it, they know what their responsibilities are. They learn from the other commissioners what their responsibilities are, and they have those guidelines established to them in that regard on most of the commissions that I'm aware of. But yeah, so if you wouldn't need some change or adjustments, we could certainly do that. So we're here to discuss it. If anybody wants to make a motion, we could do so. Otherwise, we can have staff do some research and set up, some guidelines with respect to some of these commissions, and then meet with a group and to determine what the next step is. Is that amenable to you, Councilor Johnson? Okay, thank you. So, may we do that? Do we need a motion for that, Britt? Okay, looking for that motion. Councilor Johnson?
I'll move to direct staff to work with the appropriate people to research commission guidelines or job descriptions.
Thank you. Support?
I'll support.
By Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
Just one, being liaison to public utilities, you should include, when you do the job descriptions, Greg French on that one, because they do a pretty good job of what they pass forward if you read the minutes on public utilities. So just include him if you're going to go forward on that, or his representative that's there.
Well, I look forward to the research coming back to all of us to discuss. I personally am cautious about saying job description as opposed to guidelines, because a job is a job. Guidelines are guidelines for volunteers, but however staff works out and how would you find out. So has been moved and supported. Chair, you got a little work to do. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the discussion regarding the job description, the proposed job descriptions that are in your packet. The first one is the event coordinator at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. This came from a discussion we had regarding staffing at a previous meeting for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, and this is just the first draft. This is the staff seeking some guidance. Sherry and I didn't know exactly what we wanted to call it, council wanted to call this position, and we didn't know where this position was going to be placed or where the council's thought was going to be, whether this was intended to be a managerial position or if the council had thought to put this in an AFSCME position. So we kind of left this a little vague. If the intent is to make this a managerial position, we need to add a little more directive authority to this job description. So I'm looking for some feedback and some guidance on this one.
Okay, thank you, Britt. Britt has asked me as the personnel chair if we could accelerate it a little bit, bring it to the rest of the council. The personnel committee usually meets and discusses some of these things, but because it's not that we're pressed for time, but we're skipping a step here for all of us to take a look at a job description, which is a new job description, not a adjustment to a current job description. So we all have the same input moving forward. So right here, it says a review. So right now, we're just taking a look at it and reviewing. And so I have a couple comments about that I'd like to see with respect to the event coordinator. I know initially in the meetings they were asking for 1.5. I would be supportive of taking a look at a one full-time position if that's appropriate or not, and then do the second one moving forward. But the question that I would have, and it is a topic for us to discuss, is that with looking at this job description of the event coordinator position, I see a lot of layers that may be redundant, starting from the Lundin Group, going to Jim Hunt, going to the event coordinator, going to Brian Silber, or going to event coordinator, go to Jim Hunt, then going to Brian Silber. So there's a bunch of layers there. There's a significant amount of labor, of cost associated with that. So as we look at this job description, if we determine that we're going to move forward, I think we have to take a look at our other contract positions and what we're spending for bookings and events and things of that nature. So if those be combined in some way, but I think, look, that's a little something to look in the future, but it is tangent and tangible to the job description as we're looking at it today. I have other things I'd like to comment on, but I'll reserve them for after everybody else has an opportunity to speak. First, Councillor Johnson, then over to Councillor Beyondich.
Thank you, Mayor. My opinion is this should be a managerial position. I really see this as being the person who is working directly with the client and needing to direct staff that they need to move 6 tables right now into the hallway because that was a misstep when the planning was done. I don't see this in conflict with anything else. The Lundin Group does the bookings, they do the arranging. That's all done all beforehand, over the phone, tours. I see this person being the go-between between that. This is the person that works nights and weekends during events. This is the person who at 10:30 on a Saturday morning when the lights aren't on in the hallway can turn the lights on in the hallway because they're aware that's their focus is specifically on the event or events going on at that day and time. This is the person who, when the hockey teams come and they realize they now want a room, this is the person that day can go, and we have one, how are you gonna pay for it? Here's the room, we'll set it up for you. I think that this is the missing piece to make everything else flow seamlessly, especially on the day of events. That I think is where we don't have somebody at this time that can focus solely on that. Jim is at the building to focus on the bigger picture, the setting up, the planning ahead, the coordinating. So I see this as a mate position. I see this as someone who can delegate, someone who will be working more than 40 hours, mostly nights and weekends with some day stuff. So I think that as we move forward, this is the piece we need that's going to bring us to the next level of folks needing to, of wanting to reserve and booking out a year, 2 years out because we've got the customer service that we want to see there. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before we go to Councillor Beyondich, I look at it from a little bit different perspective. You're talking to some of the events managers, and when they have, they usually have their own event coordinators, and they don't use a contract service in which to do that. I know that the Lundy Group has done yeoman's work for us, good work for us in bookings, but the purpose of an event coordinator is to take care of the events, even to book the events, to ensure that the events are properly managed. In other words, if somebody needs something, they make sure they go around with the person that wants to rent the place. They get all that information, whatever those needs are, that goes to the facilities manager. If they need chairs, tables, the facilities manager makes sure that the staff takes care of that, not the event coordinator, from my perspective. The event coordinator takes care of the client, moves the client forward, identifies what the client's needs are, books the clients moving forward, does the advertisements, all those kind of things. And if they need the work to be done based upon what the client wants, the event coordinator coordinates that with the facilities manager, which is Jim Hunt, to make sure that gets done. That's kind of the way I look at it. But we'll go to Councillor Beyondich and then over to Councillor Paulson. Councillor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I would agree with you. I think we need to look at what each person there is doing, because I feel like somehow we're overlapping some of the duties. We're not very clear cut. So I would like to also see the other job descriptions side by side so I could see what everybody's duties are. And yes, it's an important position, walking them from start to finish, but
I can answer that question. I can certainly get that to you too. So let's talk about when an event occurs. So if I make a phone call, I'm having a wedding. I make a phone call, I call Tyler. Tyler takes me on a tour of the facility. We talk about what I want. I decide I want the full ballroom and both meeting rooms. I sit down with Tyler and I sign the contract. Tyler hands the contract. Usually Jim Hunt sits in there too, and we hand the contract to Jim Hunt. So Jim Hunt schedules it. We get it in the booking system. we're on the schedule now, and so then Jim Hunt places it in the computer, and we schedule how many tables, we want round tables, we want whatever it may be. And so then, between knowing brides, as you guys know brides, you change your mind 15,000 times between what color linens I want, how many table settings I want. No, I want my head table not in the west anymore, the sun's a little different, I want it over here instead. That's the questions Jim Hunt answers. After the Tyler's booked, Tyler's booked. Tyler's not involved anymore. Now it's Jim Hunt takes it over to that point, to the point of the day of the event. The day of the event, Jim Hunt does not live there 24/7. This is where we're falling down, is the day of is changes 15,000 more times the day of. And this is where we're having the problem. I love our part-time staff, and they're great, but they're not event people either. So then we have part-time people saying, I don't know what you're talking about when you're saying your 6-foot table should be over here on the west side of the building. My diagram says it's supposed to be over here. That's where I put it. And this is where this person would be integral, saying, not a problem. We can do that, not a problem. And yes, I know your caterer. I've talked to them twice already. Yes, I know them, and we can do that. So we're missing that connecting piece of this person. That's just a brief overview because you guys know events, but.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor, I think it was Counselor Paulson and then Counselor Bearable. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to see this council have a little bit more robust discussion and pull the Lundin contract, Brian, our Park and Rec Director contract, Jim Hunt, the facilities manager. What's his?
Program Event Services Manager.
Program Event Services Manager contract, and then work on drafting a little bit more congruent job description. I'm all in favor. We need this coordinator position, but just some of the language. You will work closely with the events programs. Oh, it's right here. Program Services Manager, Sales, the marketing team, and the Park and Recreation Director on a wide variety of events, multiple park locations throughout the city, particularly focused on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And I think that we need to talk about Iron Trail Motors Event Center specific. And then the other, who we just hired as a 0.5, possibly working on some of those other duties throughout the city and throughout the city's outbuildings. So I'd like to maybe look at an organizational structure on who may be handling what within the city buildings or the outbuildings. And just to share, I've had a couple people share a couple experiences, but I'd like to share one that has been a complete breakdown, if I may. So the event was booked through the Lundin Group. Our Park and Rec Director was on vacation. Someone from the Lundin Group was also out for a week. And the person who booked the event had no idea who to contact, how to contact. They would leave messages, but no one would be getting back to them. So they didn't know, should I call the next number on the bumper cars or what have you. And this was more of a conference than a wedding. I've also had feedback on the wedding side where there's like a fracture of communication. That's why I think this coordinator is really important. But I think it's equally important that we look at, like the mayor said, the layers, and like Councilor Beyondich said, the overlapping. Because I know it was requested as a 1.5, but I'm almost wondering if we do a 0.5 and 0.5, because the breakup in terms of how is this one person going to be at all of these different events, I'm not sure. So I'd like to maybe discuss, I think we should have all of the parties here and let's go through a scenario of a booking. What does that look like? And this is just off the top of my head, but it would be really nice to have everything internally done. You have a central number, the person is there, the person gives the tour there, and maybe the Lundins transition to more marketing phase. Since we're now starting to get those bookings, I think that was our original intent, was that they would be kind of marketing and getting those initial bookings. And I think Tyler had planned on coming, but maybe that's not happening as regularly, or maybe it's harder to schedule tours. So maybe we need to look at the overall process in which the way things are coming in. So like we could even do a mock call-in, do a booking, who does it get handed off to? If someone's on vacation, who takes the ball? If somebody drops the ball, who picks up the ball? If AFSME is a non-supervisory, how does that work between MAPE and AFSME? So I guess those are things I'd like to have sifted out. And we definitely need a person that has a lot of hospitality and the roll out the red carpet type of personality, because I feel like that's what's really being missed with some of the negative feedback that I have gotten from events and also weddings. And I'm not trying to put a negative spin out there, but I think it's really good feedback that to receive constructive criticism or positive feedback. And there's been a lot of positive feedback too, and so we should focus on that at some point. But just so we can work out the kinks and craft a job description that really makes sense to when we're hosting conferences or tournaments, or who's in charge of that. Maybe there's some differentiation between Jim Hunt with tournaments and with this new person. So I guess I'd like to just have a little bit more robust conversation. I know I opened up a lot of can of worms, but if we could do that, I think that would I think we're going down the right path. But it would make me feel a lot more comfortable to have all of that in, again, because I know we've had those job descriptions in front of us as we were crafting things in the past. But as I've heard things slipping through the cracks, I just think it's really important that we get this right. I know the building, I'd like to also know when the completion date, when we actually have the building is completed date, and that all of our services are rocking and rolling. So if that could be provided too. So the level of expectation when someone is booking is up here, but maybe the level of completion is somewhere almost here, and then we're not meeting this level, so the response is way down. So I think that's kind of key too, is when is the completion date of, the final completion date of our building. I'd like to see that information come forward too. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, and I echo many of your comments there, and I'd like to lay out a scenario later on, just very, very briefly as we move forward with that potential special meeting, to a mock exercise about how from start to finish. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I agree that we need this position. The Lundin Group was hired as a consultant just to do actual research and bookings for our facility. They weren't hired to do nitty-gritties and stuff going around the building and doing those. They're doing that as just an extra service for us. So this event program services manager, that would be his responsibility, to make tours and do all that stuff. We need the Lundin Group to keep pushing and getting events here. That's the main focus for them. And they're doing a good job right now. But we need somebody in between to finish out the process. And I think that's what Councilor Paulson is saying there. That missing cog in the wheel. I agree. Meeting and putting together stuff with all parties would be good in my mind too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. We'll go to Councilor Johnson first, and then I have a couple of quick comments. I'm sorry, Councilor Freely, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
Well, when we were, looking at the grand opening, and that's basically a large-scale, all-hands-on-deck type of event that we were gonna run. And I remember Tracy Lundin, being an experienced person, telling us that we need about 7 to 9 people to pull this off that we didn't have, and talked about adding that as the time comes. And so that's what we're doing right now, talking about those positions that we need to add as the time comes. When you think about an event center, though, not all there's a lot of variability in terms of size and scale of what kinds of events you're going to be putting on, and it's not always an all hands on deck type of situation. I did have an informal conversation with an individual the other day who had 30-plus years experience in community development and planning, who said, without question, the best thing that happened to the city of Virginia in the last several decades is the building of the event center. On the other hand, it could be also the worst thing that could happen to the city of Virginia because of the size and scale of this building and the needs that it presents for us to create positions that are going to cover all of the things that we're going to need to do there. And the maintenance that's going to be required that's much larger than we've been involved in the past. Like the miners' memorial building was what, 90,000 square feet, and this is like pushing 140,000 square feet. So I mean, we've already added people for these positions. We're going to continue to have to add positions, but it seems like we're going to have to think in terms of like a lot of this is going to be revenue reliant, I think, on what this building is providing to the city in terms of revenue, in terms of what we can expend then for the additional needs we have in the building from a maintenance standpoint to an operational standpoint. So I'm not opposed to these positions at all, but I think we really have to dot all the i's and cross all the t's and look at these as closely as possible to determine who we need, how we need them, and how often we will need them, depending on what kinds of events we're going to be providing at that facility. So, yeah, I think this is a good starting point, but I think there is potential for overlap. It appears to me that like Jim needs an assistant of sorts, to be honest with you. I don't know that I agree that it would be necessarily a mate position, to be honest with you, because we have that oversight in Jim. So I think we have to have further conversation in terms of how we're plugging these people in and what their responsibilities will be and what the hierarchy will be with regard to how we utilize them for the scale and scope of the events that we'll be running.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just making a note here so I don't forget. I think that the idea of going through a dry run would be great, and I think we should do that at the building. That would make the most sense if we were the customers, because theoretically, we could host a summer event as a council. The city could, and maybe that's what we do, is we run through the booking and everything and do it there and have that discussion there. So I think that would be good. We have to remember that when it comes to directing of city staff, if a bride comes in and wants 4 extra tables, the bride can't tell a city staff, I want 4 extra tables. It's got to go through, someone has to have the authority to delegate to the staff, this is what needs to happen. And I think because if they're not asking the right person the right question, they're not going to get the answer that they need. So having that person on the ground who knows this is the staff that fixes the heating, this is the staff that gets table, I think that's really important. And we need to make sure that's all well-defined, and I agree with that as we look at the job descriptions. I think one of the things that comes to mind, and I've been thinking about this, is we've now got more buildings that are more utilized around the city. We've had people in this room have had challenges getting into the Klein Cupoletti building on a Saturday morning. We've got buildings all over, and so an event coordinator position, while focused on the miners, would allow, or focused on the new building, would allow the other staff to help with the other buildings. We're no longer a city where there's one event going on at the big building, and then we fit in some stuff here and there. We've got some really nice quality buildings that people are renting regularly. When I work in the summertime, the Klein building is probably rented at least every other day. That requires somebody to help. In all reality, a wedding party could come in, they could book the Klein building for the night before for a reception and for present opening because it's cheaper than booking the big building for 3 events. And that's the kind of thing that I see the event coordinator person making sure all those things are seamless so that it's not 3 different people helping in 3 different buildings. Renting the room here at City Hall is the club room is a great little room to hold family events in. Lots of space, warm, centrally located, good parking. There's a possibility. So I think that while we're focused on the building, Brian hasn't been a parks director, I would say, in the last 2 years. He's been the building contract manager, on-site person for almost 2 years, almost since we hired him. And so I think that you're right, Counselor Freely. This is all evolving, and we need to be open to what does that look like for the entire city, for the entire Parks and Rec department, not just the new building, not just the ballroom. Other events can be going on. We've got a facility on a perfect day, there could be 5 events going on, which means we're generating revenue during a day. And maybe one of the things we had talked about when we were planning this is there's a very good possibility that there could be a Mining Minnesota meeting from 8 to noon, and that night, the ballroom needs to be completely switched over from classroom to ballroom with a dance floor. And we need a person who can focus on just that while another person is focusing on the hockey arena and the tournament going on, and then there's the rest of the Parks and Rec. So I like the idea of getting together, getting those job descriptions side by side. Maybe the job descriptions need to be organized in the flow of the job description, so when we line them up, Brian, and go down, it flows that way as we look at them physically and not kind of randomly. Sometimes job descriptions just get put together, and we're growing. We're a growing city where we are really, I'm excited to be here as a part of what could be here in 20 years and what it looks like. So I think this is I think these are growing pains at the colleges. We're what's called the messy middle right now as we're transitioning to a whole new organizational structure. And I think that's kind of where we are with the new building in Parks and Rec. It's kind of the messy middle where we're figuring out what we don't know yet. So I think that I would, I'm ready to, is there a motion? I don't even remember, no. So I'll make the motion that we direct staff to work on creating a meeting where we, at the new building, where we go through the process and really look at these job descriptions, and that's the sole purpose of the meeting.
All right, a motion by Councilor Johnson, is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Paulson, any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. And so for me, it's about redundancy. It's for me about events and talking to these other places that run these events. You know, they have what they call an organizational structure order where each person has their own duties and responsibilities that deals with to ensure that the event is successful and comes to fruition. That's from the director to the facilities manager to the event coordinator to the full-time staff to the part-time staff to make sure that this event is successful. It is imperative that we have an events coordinator that can coordinate the event. And the client wants to talk to one person. They don't want to talk to a booking agent and then talk to the facilities manager or the park and rec director and then talk to the event coordinator moving forward. That event coordinator is a very important job, is as described by other event centers, that this person takes care of the events themselves. They find out what the need of the client is for that event to make it successful. And what those needs are, the client articulates that. The events coordinator kind of holds their hand as they go through to make sure that's done. Once they find out what the client needs, they go to that event coordinator, he or she goes to the facilities manager, see, this is what they need for this event. And the facilities manager says, we got to get that done for you. We'll have 50 tables here, chairs here. But if that changes, that party or that client has one person they talk to. That is the event coordinator, who will ask for those changes and adjustments to the facilities manager moving forward. So instead of talking to 4 different people, so we have one party booking the event, and that's handed off to our facilities manager, which is then handed off to, so these people who are booking these clients are talking to 4 or 5 different people sometimes. So that's why this event coordinator is such an important position. So I'm glad that we moved and supported to make this a meeting so we could talk about the job description. I think it's a work in progress. The goal and objective to getting on this agenda instead of going through a personnel committee was to accelerate that and open the discussion up to all counselors. And then, so now that we're going to do this, we'll have a chance to take a look at these job descriptions as we try to plug in at this meeting a mock event exercise to determine what's redundant and what isn't, what's needed and what's not. But the key to this has always been, from my perspective, is that the most important aspect of this is the client. whoever's renting that place, the client is the most important. We have to make sure that client is taken care of. And the events coordinator is the most important position there as part of to ensure that the client gets what they need, whatever event it is. So if you want to book there's a way they can book these other places around the Walcott Park, for whatever the case may be. But if it's part of the event coordinator, if there's an event at the Iron Terminals Event Center, and this coordinator somebody says, we want to rent another part of the facility, that's all inclusive in the event coordinator's planning. And then they go to Jim Hunt, who's the facilities manager for the Iron Terminals Event Center, and then the Park and Rec director, to determine, outside that, who's going to do that work. So the event coordinator is not going to go talk to, they're going to talk to whoever manages the facility, who's ever responsible for setting that stuff up. That is taken care of by staff, already on staff, who knows what they do. They do this all the time. It's the event coordinator to hold the hand of the client, to make sure, identify what their needs are, and make sure that the staff above them, their supervisors, and, they get all that together so they get that work done. That's the way I look at it, so we'll be doing that. So it has been moved and supported. We've voted on that, right? So we're going to do that. So any further discussion with respect to the job description at this one moving forward? First, Councillor Paulson, then we'll hear from Amanda Metza. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to tag on to that, since we're asking staff to kind of work up a meeting, there's some few things that I'd like that I've asked to have added to the website. I'm on the website now. What I'd like to see, and I think Tyler and Tracy should probably be a part of this conversation.
Sure.
Because in looking over different wedding venues, we're doing pretty much the same thing. So like I had asked for more transparency, like the a la carte, all the stuff out there. Most wedding venues don't have that information. You've got to fill in their CAPTCHA page, and then they contact you. But I think it's important. So what I'd like to see, and I don't know, Pam, if I have a little list. So I'd like to see a sample contract on the website so people can look over the contract. The checklist. So if it's a conference or a wedding, I think they have two different checklists that they're already giving them. But let's put it out there so people, almost just as a reminder, hey, here are things you need to check into, blah, blah, blah. I would like the full pricing online. And then I'd also like all phone numbers listed. We've got Jen for ice bumper cars and skating, and then events and weddings, Tyler Lundeen. What I'm noticing is Tyler's email is Iron Trail Motors Event, it's Tyler at irontrailmotorseventcenter.com. And our bumper cars is a virginiamn.us. So I'd like to have there be consistency with the email. And then also, do we own the website, or does the Lundeen Group own the website? We own the website, okay. And is there a place that we could actually do a live chat and maybe have somebody, what it seems like is when people are either emailing, I don't know the length of time that it's taking to get back to them, but phone calls are taking a while to get back to them.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's something we could, these young people do a lot of live chatting and emailing. Us older people pick up the phone and call. So if you're getting a mom that's calling about a wedding, you may get a phone call. If you're talking about a kid who's booking a wedding or a younger person, they're going to do the email process, in my opinion, because that's just the generational flow. So maybe just make it a little bit more website friendly and a little bit more transparent so the public can see. And I know that's not typical from what most weddings or conference centers do, but because we are a city-owned we're owned by our this building is owned by the taxpayers, I think transparency is really important. So that would be my request to bring forward in that meeting as well. So we can, when our constituents call us and we can say, hey, yep, those things are right there. You can go read over a sample contract. You can see if that fits with what you'd like to do. If you need further information, there's a live chat, or there's a person that you can, talk to. hopefully?
Yes, starting on Monday from 9 to 3, Jen will be answering the phone live. There will be no auto attendant from 9 to 3. It goes straight to Jen.
Okay.
So-
And I think, and I know we're getting there.
That will help.
Yep.
And that will be, so unless she's busy. If it's
Exactly.
busy, no answer, it'll go to Jen's voicemail. But Jen will be there from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, and the second Saturday of every month from 9
And
to 3.
then one last thing after this experience that I've just now been through is the fact that when people come to actually find somebody at the building, there's no phone for them, in like a lobby phone for them to pick up and maybe dial a number. You actually have to kind of run around the building to see. A lot of times there's, people aren't in that office and it's locked. So I'm wondering if that's something we could install.
I am working on that too.
Or do we have like a pager system that the employees could maybe carry? Not that I want to burden or do any more expense or anything like that, but just for the ease of people for access. And I'll give you a silly mom example. My daughter had a skating competition. She left her skates in the locker room, and her competition was in Hibbing, and we had to be there at 8 in the morning. So I was down and this was during the evacuation. So the building, is opened up at 6:30, I believe. I was down there, I think, at 6:45. I had to walk around, but I found someone, and then they were able to open up the skating locker room to get me her skates that she forgot. So I guess just for the sake of being able to pick up a phone, I don't know if there would be something dial 0 for paging or something like that. So, and if you're working on that,
I am
great.
working on that
but
too. That
those
was a
are just-
directive from the last
Those are
meeting too.
things that
So, yeah.
I've observed in my own mom process or other people coming to the building and not being able to locate someone without having to walk around the whole building. So those are just some things as we schedule this meeting going forward, that if we could address those
Yes.
and put our brainstorming power together as well, that I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
We are creating a dial number, and we will have signs that say if you need assistance, and I'm sure you've seen them, see something that you needs correction or need something, dial this number, scan this code, whatever, and you can call this number. We are working on that so that, because it's a big building. It's really hard to find people sometimes in there, especially on those really quiet mornings when there's nobody immediately available. So, yeah, we are working on that.
And I think part of that whole meeting that we're going to have at Iron Terminal Event Center will be all-inclusive of that. And so where there's signage for a specific number to call, that number has to be answered always. You can't just leave a message. This is, and from my perspective, and I'll talk about it at there, I've got a whole list of things that, could be discussed here, but we're here to discuss the job description. So this job description is something is a work in progress. We'll be reviewing that, making some tweaks to it as we have this meeting at the event center. Sorting this stuff out, we'll be in good shape. So we'll go to Councilor Beyondich, and then we'll go to the audience. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. Just one question. You just mentioned Jen is there. She'll be answering the phone live from 9 to 3 every day?
Correct.
How many hours a week is she working?
Up to 30.
Up to 30? So weekends wouldn't be,
She has to work one Saturday.
okay. I just wanted to clarify the amount of hours.
And that's just a stopgap. And so when we go through this mock exercise, we'll figure out what the needs are moving forward. And I'm going to reserve the rest of the stuff because we're talking about the job description here. We're going off in this tangent, that tangent. We're going to have this meeting to make sure that we do go through this mock exercise so all these questions can be answered at one sitting. So,
And our 2 lead recreation assistants will start their schedule, I think, next week also. And they'll be working 7 to 3 and 2 to 10. So they'll be also in this mix. So there's a lot going on that it's going to be happening. So, but 9 to 3, the phone will be ringing at Jen's desk and answered live.
yeah, and so we'll vet that out at this meeting as well. Councilor Friedman.
Just real quick, like, what's coming to my head is like, in researching what we're trying to accomplish, there's got to be similarly sized, successful event centers locally, regionally, Midwest, that we could tap and look at what kind of employee rosters they have and what the titles of those employees are and potentially how their job descriptions are described. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad thing so that we could mirror what we're trying to do with what's been successfully done in others. So that's one suggestion.
And when we were doing the tours a while back, that was one of the questions. How do you keep, streamline your services you provide for the events they're holding here? They said, we have one contact person, that's an event coordinator that takes care of everything. And any other requests for information or any other things that the event coordinator makes sure that the rest of the staff is aware, the supervisor are aware, so that this is an important piece that's missing moving forward, so thank you. Did you have a question or comment, Amanda? Please come forward, thank you.
Sorry that I missed the beginning of the discussion, but I just wanted to say, I think everybody who has been part of these discussions, either at a council level or on the periphery or a member of the public who has utilized this, sees how important this is. And what I think we'd ask the council is not to conflate the importance of a position with the status of a position as management, right? You, Councilor Paulson, spoke about the need for layers and the need for division of duties was spoke about by Mayor Cuffey, right? And one of the concerns, I think, from our perspective is that there aren't layers and that there is a growing number of management positions rather than, kind of a chain of command, as it were. And so I think that is our biggest concern. This was put onto the agenda, and though we have been part of the discussions about this in the past, we were not part of the discussion about this, the job description as it was finally presented. And I think that, that discussion obviously will continue about whether this is an AFSCME position or a MAPE position. But I think the AFSCME members and the AFSCME leadership has a role in being able to tell you, hey, here are where some of the holes are, right? And also PELRA, as your city attorney can tell you, guides what is management, what is supervisory and what is not. And nothing that I see in this position indicates that this is a supervisory position, right? It is a position that relays needs up and down the chain of command, right? And will tell the supervisor, whether that's Jim or Brian, hey, here's what we need. We have an event coming up. We need this many staff. And it's the supervisor's role to schedule those staff. You need not be a supervisor in order to direct staff on the day of and to say, hey, we need to go move this table, right? We have staff who direct duties all the time, foremen, right? For example, in public works or in the parks who say, today this is what we need to accomplish. Here's how we're going to divvy that out. That is not an exclusive thing, it doesn't exclude this position from being a bargaining unit position. And I think there's a wealth of knowledge you can draw on from the bargaining unit as you move forward in discussing this. And so we just wanted to make sure that that was put on record to you, so.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, support and a vote that we're going to set up this meeting, and part of that will be all inclusive of what we've just discussed today. So this has been good fodder for discussion. Hopefully, going through this mock exercise will really give us an educational, find out where the holes are and trying to make adjustments to that. Part of that is the review of this particular job description to determine, where that fits in and how that fits into our organizational chart and our work matrix. So thank you. And anything else in this before we move to the Administrative Assistant for Public Works? Seeing none, Britt?
Is that voted on? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I'm losing track of myself there. Item 6B is the Administrative Assistant for Public Works job description.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson has his light on.
Thank you, Mayor. The one thing I want to make sure that we're very specific, Public Works Department, and I'd like to see, and other departments of the city as needed, because from time to time, I would think someone's going to call Public Works looking for Parks and Rec. So I want to just make sure that this goes back to, you work for the city of Virginia, you don't work for the Public Works Department. So I'd like to make sure that when however that's put in here, that's clear. Because I feel like in the past, somebody who has worked for a department, and that's where they work. And so I want to make sure that as we move forward with all of our job descriptions, we're saying, and you work for the city. So you never know, there may be a day where we have to have you answer phones for the entire city because City Hall is closed or something like that. Thank you.
At this job description, I didn't know what exactly to call this one, because this grew out of the administrative assistant was the original title. It was a half-time position. But this position is really something that is taking duties that numerous other employees of Public Works currently do, taking administrative duties that mechanics do, that some of the team leaders do, various other duties that various other employees do and bringing it back into the office to one person that sits at a desk the majority of the time and having one person do them. Right now, help me out, Scott, there's quite a few people that do a lot of these different things. I mean, there's a couple mechanics that once a month will call all the parts stores, get purchase orders and tell them our new purchase order monthly.
Well,
Really shouldn't be a mechanic's duty.
I agree.
That should really be an administrative duty. There are team leaders that are parts runners that go get parts for vehicles when that could be better utilized, rather than stopping what they're doing, going to go get a part. There could go be somebody that's at the office for the team leader to call and say, I need a carburetor for the 88 International. Somebody else that's sitting in the office could go grab the part for them, rather than them stopping what they're doing and going get the part. I think it would be better utilized and more efficient if we had somebody that's not physically hands dirty doing these things.
Thank you. Before we go to Scott, I'll just throw it out there. I'm supportive of the full-time administrative assistant for Public Works, with their primary responsibility being in Public Works, but as other duties as assigned as needed to the city to accommodate some gaps in the event that there's something needs to be done. But the primary duty responsibility would be there to cover the administrative assistant. Mary was there part-time. It wasn't enough for Public Works. There's a lot of work to be done there. It's an administrative position, persistent position. We have those in pockets here at City Hall. And when all hands are on deck, then it needs to be done. They can be reassigned to somewhere else. I don't think this position will be any different, but the primary duties and responsibilities do the administrative work. To the mechanics and the leaders, and they can do all that work, do all the ordering, so take you away from the tasks and duties and responsibilities that you do to provide the regular services that you need for Public Works. That's my perspective, so thank you. Scott, and then we'll go to Councilor Paulson. Scott?
I'm just here to answer any questions that anybody has. I mean, like Britt said, this is a situation where we're down a mechanic right now. We had 5. We're down 4. Well, when they work on an ambulance, it takes 2 mechanics to bring this ambulance back. So what we're trying to do with this position is this position will be able to go and pick one of those mechanics up. So that way we still have 3 in the shop. Or this position will come in when we're shorthanded like we are because of the lovely situation we have. This position will come in and they'll be able to haul snow at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's why the Class B is required by this. Right now we have mechanics that do it. So now our shop is empty, so now we're down a truck or something when something breaks down. So we're trying to alleviate the mechanics to let them do their job, is basically. But this position will plow snow, it'll haul snow, they'll do whatever it needs, plus the stuff in the office, so that way to alleviate the team leaders from doing it. Because we had a team leader today that had to do some stuff, and it took that position away from being an operator and a loader. So now we're short a loader operator. You know, it's just like you said, this is an all-around position that we really would like to have.
And if I just may ask before we go to Councilor Paulson, I just want to just briefly touch on the little tangent that you talked about. I had a conversation with one of your mechanics the other day. I was down there for something else with Mr. Rosvit. He called me. So this mechanic, I asked him, you know, about the equipment at the airport, because Councilor Johnson and I are on that authority. And we're talking about, you know, hauling the plow truck and stuff over the Oshkosh machine and to figure out what's going on. There was so much maintenance that was deferred on that thing and get done. I didn't realize it. I don't think the council realizes how much work had to be done in order to bring that back up. The manifold was busted in half. You couldn't get a new manifold because the truck was so old. So what did the mechanics do down there? Hours and hours and hours to fix it up, to replace the gas lines, to fabricate some oil lines that they couldn't get the closes for. The manifold had to be, so they had to, they couldn't weld it, they had to refabricate a whole new manifold. That takes a lot of time and effort away from that. So I just want to say yeoman's work for that and moving forward. It's just unbelievable how deferred maintenance can be a problem. We don't do it here in the city, but that was a prime example of the airport where how that equipment was never properly maintained. And it took it upon our professionals as mechanics to make sure that thing was up and running, because what did the guy say? You know, it's not worth fixing. Get rid of it. And you guys brought it back on the road, so it's usable for, you know, for the next short few years to come. Councilor Paulson.
Well, congratulations to the team.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Great job.
Yeah. Just a quick, what do we call this? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
But just going to the primary objective, it says advanced clerical and technical assistance. Scott, does that describe in the primary objective of the position, it provides advanced clerical and technical assistance to assist in the development of implementation of policy standards and/or program operations of the Public Works Department?
Yes, I would say so.
So would it make sense to call it an advanced clerical and technical assistant?
Not a bad idea. That's really,
To
that's
use
probably
the
really good.
words
Yeah,
you're
yeah, use the
using
words
to-
that are in there. And I do apologize, Jim Rosford is in quarantine, so he couldn't be here today. And the one thing he really wanted to hit with this job description is what we've been lacking for years is the safety component, that we haven't had a really good safety person down at Public Works to coordinate our OSHA-required tailgate talks, our logs, just to make sure that they're all there. I mean, they're all the HAZCOM requirements.
Right.
So that's where the technical assistance and that kind of thing. So I think that's hitting it right on the head, the clerical technical assistant. Is that what you said it was?
Yeah, I mean, what is advanced clerical? Is that something different, like creating purchase orders? Is that advanced in terms of clerical, or is that?
I think a little more than that, a little more than, I mean, it's creating those logs and creating those spec sheets and those things that you would be required. It's not just your everyday typing. You have to
Right,
be.
so do you want to keep the word advanced
I think
clerical?
so. I think so.
So
Advanced
maybe
clerical.
just, I would suggest advanced clerical and technical assistant.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me. When we're looking at this position moving forward, it's a recommendation that we do. I know that if we're going to make a motion to allow us to move forward with this position, I'm sure that there has to be some negotiations with the ASP union about the job description, meeting with them in that respect, and I'm assuming this is an ASME position.
Yes, this
Right?
is me, yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, this position is very important, and we need to have somebody that's capable of putting together purchase orders, not just on a monthly basis, but more often, so we can get them down to the finance department, so we don't get behind the eight ball, where we've got stuff that we've purchased, but there's no purchase order until the end. That's a problem, because you can get behind your spending and get ahead of what's budgeted. We have not gone to that form like every other city that I know of that purchases. They get the purchase order before they go out and actually purchase and give it to the finance department before they actually go down and pick it up. And a lot of our, I believe, Scott, we can use purchase orders at most of the places and then have them billed back to the city, but we need to have them put down ahead of time so we know what we're spending.
Right.
And that's not happening right now. This would be important for this person.
Yeah, they're just doing a general purchase order right now. Basically, it comes down to the four mechanics just to be, they'll do rock, paper, scissors, who's gonna do it each month. So one of the mechanics takes a day and they call every single patient that they buy parts from and have to give them a purchase order. And again, it takes away their time from being a mechanic. So that's what we're trying to alleviate by this individual. And the team leaders, for instance, when we need castings for our manholes and barrels and that, we have to take, the team leader has to go and take time out of their day to put these orders in, to, you know what I mean, where if we had somebody in the office, it would be awesome to, I mean, you know, because Mary was only there half the time. You know what I mean? She was there in the morning and then gone, so. And like you said before too, when the phone rings, most of the time the phone, for some reason, comes to Public Works. And then they would direct that phone call to Pub Park and Rec or to City Hall or wherever, so that's not an issue there either.
And you need somebody to answer the phone.
Yep.
When I call down there, most of the time you have to leave a message. And
Yep.
they get called back right away, but,
Right.
you know, the public needs to know that, so.
Yep.
So I mean, I know that, I know we're to review the following job descriptions, but we can't take action on either one of these job descriptions. We already made a motion on the first one to take a look at that as we do the mock exercise. The second one is a Public Works position. Looking at the job description, does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments about the details of the job description from our perspective? And if not, looking for council action and move forward with this or whatever the council decides they deem is appropriate. I'm comfortable with it moving forward. The recommendation from staff, it's a need that we have. And so the point is to meet with ASME, negotiate parts of that thing, and so Counselor Paulson.
Mayor, I'm comfortable moving forward with the one one FTE, provided the job description is discussed. Is that something, so if I go back to our policies about how we do this, the city council creates the position description and the union sets the wage, is that correct?
We get together in the past, like
We
we've been
negotiate
on
the
there,
wage.
and, yeah, we get together and sit at the table, and then we come up with an agreement on the
Do we
wage.
negotiate the position description too?
At that time, we can, yes.
Okay, so
But
at this point in time, are we just being asked to move to approve one full-time position for the parks, or for the public works?
Create this
create
one
this.
position, and then we'll schedule a negotiating meeting with AFSCME.
I would make that motion.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson moves. Did you get the motion, Pam? Okay, Counselor Paulson moves to approve the one full FTE Administrative Assistant for Public Works, and for staff to take the next step moving forward and to negotiate the wage and come back with a full job description with a wage package to be voted upon by the council. Does that make sense, Counselor Paulson? Is there support for that?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
Popped into my head as we're living in this world. Does the job description need to have something about being able to work from home in excruciating circumstances, or is that separate contract language? Because I'm just, if this person needed to be at home for a while, is this a work from home if needed kind of thing? Okay, I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Was this position anticipated in the budget for the following year?
Yes and no. Because of the current retirement, there was longevity involved and an extra stipend, so that will be taken into factor. We would save some, be able to utilize the savings there.
So the question by Counselor Freely is, can we afford to, this?
Yes, we
position?
can afford this, but then it goes back to the previous one here that you discussed regarding setting up the event coordinator, so.
Sure, thank you.
I think that's, partly that comment that it could be the worst thing to happen in the city of Virginia. We have limited resources, and we're adding FTEs to our existing FTEs. And at what point can we no longer afford that? And that's why I think, we are lucky right now that we are ahead of projections for revenues, and that's a good thing. And hopefully that will continue to be the trend, so that we will be able to continue to staff accordingly and have the money available to pay for these positions. But I just want to make sure that when we're approving these positions, that we've anticipated that and budgeted accordingly.
Yes, thank you, Counselor Freeman. I think we have. With Mary's retirement, she was full-time FTE. She just split her duties and responsibilities. Now this full-time FTE would have a primary resource responsibility with some flexibility to move elsewhere at the Public Works Department. And we're looking at this other job description moving forward. So that's the key in the mock discussion about that one. But this administrative assistant position, I think, so far we've all agreed that this is important for us to move forward with that. And with the information from Sherry about we have one full-time FTE that retired. There was a higher wage, longevity, other stipends that won't be part of this position, and so that would cover the costs associated with that for the full-time FTE that this position would be replacing. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And just for further clarification, so the employee that retired was 0.5 Park and Rec, 0.5 Public Works. So technically, we replaced 0.5 already at the Park and Rec. And now, so technically, we're only adding 0.5 to the overall city budget, correct?
Right.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Just for clarification.
Beautiful. Okay, so thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
You. And I appreciate you clarifying that because that has been going in my mind. Also, Councilor Friedlieb, I totally agree and understand where you're coming from. I've been asked those questions as we have been approving the hiring of different positions. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I am also aware of the added positions and what the costs are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the challenge is for the first one. We'll be try to figure that one out. This one, I think, is I think that we can go move forward with according to our staff. So thank you, Councilor Beyondich. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
Thank you.
Amanda. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Next item on the agenda is approve the 2022 liquor license for Polly's LLC, doing business as Polly G's, contingent upon submitting all required paperwork.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Friedrich. Is there support? Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Nice to see him reopening. That's fantastic. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 8 is approve the use of use of the 2 golf carts for the Earth Fest to be held on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Nice to see that back this year.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a nice event over there.
I will move to direct staff to work with Earth Fest folks to approve the use of the 2 golf course and transportation of them.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? I think their request was for the carts that have the 4 passengers they can haul back and forth. If that was their request, so thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The final item is discuss property offer for parcels in public safety development area.
Are you requesting this item be closed?
Yes, I think we do need to close on this one.
Okay, so first, before we do that, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And this is kind of veering off topic here, but could you tell me when the lease is up for the restaurant that is on the golf course? When is that date? April 1st? Have we been billed for the black tie dinner yet? Do you know what's happening with that?
No, we have not been billed.
And why are we not being billed?
That's their responsibility.
Are they up to date on their payments?
No, they are not.
How far behind are we?
$21,482.17.
So when that lease agreement comes in for renewal, that will be a huge concern for me. I don't know that they've been consistent on payments with the city. So I have a lot of questions about the restaurant, and number one, they provided a dinner, why we weren't billed for it, and being this far behind on a lease payment. So I would like the date of when, did you tell me when the date was for the?
April 1st.
April 1st? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to bring that up on other items of concern, but seeing as you've already done that, before I comment on that any further, I've got some ideas in moving forward, so I'll talk about that under other items of concern after the, well, there aren't, yeah, we are under other items of concern, thank you. So after that, I want to tack onto that as well, if I may. So looking for a motion to move to closed session regarding number 9 on the agenda is discuss property offer for parcel in the public safety development area. Moved by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Or for discussion.
Support for discussion by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
This is regarding for the public safety portion.
Yes.
And could someone just answer why that we're going into closed session on this particular parcel as opposed to the other ones where we have not?
John, can you, or Brian?
We've not gone under closed session for any of the other purchases.
We have, not recently, but we have gone in closed session on others.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor.
There are sometimes, there's some anomalies or some other information that we don't want to disseminate to the public as of yet based on negotiations. Some of them are clear-cut moving forward, others are not. So we have gone in closed session prior on others and open session on others. So the request by staff is
I guess I didn't remember going into closed session, but I thank you for the clarification.
Yes, well, no, thank you. I appreciate that, Councilor Paulson. So it's been moved and supported to move into closed session regarding this piece of parcel of property. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
We take a short break before we go into closed section.
Well, can we go into closed session, then take a break? Well, we can? Okay, let's close session, then we'll take a break before we discuss this. Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Thank you, everybody. So we've supported that, right? We voted on it, right? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We're now going to closed session. Thank you, Jan, for coming to the meeting.